Lisa Park sat in the corner booth of Sunny's diner, her 5-year-old daughter Sophie sleeping peacefully against her shoulder while she carefully counted the coins scattered across the worn formica table. Each penny represented a small victory in her daily battle against poverty, and tonight she needed exactly enough to buy Sophie a proper dinner. At 28, Lisa had never imagined her life would come to this, counting change in a diner while her daughter slept from exhaustion and hunger. 6 months ago, she had been a marketing coordinator with a steady income, a small apartment, and dreams of giving Sophie the stable childhood she herself had never experienced. Everything had changed when her company downsized and her position was eliminated. The severance pay had lasted 2 months, unemployment benefits barely covered rent, and her savings had evaporated with Sophie's medical bills when she had contracted pneumonia during the winter. Lisa had sold everything of value, jewelry, electronics, furniture, but the money had gone quickly to rent, utilities, and Sophie's basic needs. She had applied for dozens of jobs, but without reliable childcare and with gaps in her employment history, opportunities remained elusive. The coins on the table totaled $4.63. Sophie's kids' meal cost $4.50, leaving 13 cents that Lisa hoped would be enough for a small coffee to justify occupying the booth for a few hours while Sophie slept. Lisa's stomach cramped with hunger. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, saving every penny for Sophie's meals. But seeing her daughter's peaceful face, finally relaxed after a day of walking from one job interview to another, made every sacrifice worthwhile. She organized the coins by denomination, counting them once more to ensure accuracy. Tonight, like every night, Sophie would eat. Lisa's own hunger was a price she willingly paid for her daughter's well-being. Capítulo 2. The Successful Observer. Michael Kim finished reviewing the quarterly reports on his tablet and glanced around the modest diner where he had stopped for coffee during his drive back to the city. As CEO of a major tech company, he rarely found himself in establishments like Sunny's Diner, but his usual route had been blocked by construction, leading him to this unexpected detour. At 37, Michael had built his company from a startup in his garage to a multinational corporation employing thousands. Success had brought him wealth, recognition, and influence. But it had also created a lifestyle insulated from the struggles that many families faced daily. His attention was drawn to a young woman in the corner booth who was meticulously counting coins while a small child slept against her shoulder. There was something about her careful, deliberate movements that suggested this wasn't casual. Every coin seemed to matter in a way that Michael hadn't experienced since his own childhood. Michael remembered his own mother counting money at their kitchen table, calculating whether they could afford both groceries and electricity that month. Those memories had driven his ambition to build financial security, but success had gradually distanced him from understanding what desperation actually looked like. The woman appeared to be in her late 20s, with tired eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant worry. Her clothes were clean but worn, and she held herself with a dignity that poverty hadn't managed to break. The sleeping child looked well cared for despite their obvious circumstances. Michael watched as she counted the coins a second time, her expression showing relief when she confirmed she had enough for whatever she was planning to purchase. The careful way she organized the money suggested this was a routine born of necessity rather than choice. Something about the scene stirred memories and emotions that Michael had buried under years of corporate success. He found himself unable to look away from this glimpse into a world he had forgotten existed. Capítulo 3. The Difficult Order. Lisa gently shifted Sophie to a more comfortable position and signaled to the waitress, a kind woman named Betty, who had worked at the diner for over 20 years. Betty approached with the patient understanding of someone who had seen countless families struggle through difficult times. "What can I get for you tonight, honey?" Betty asked softly, her voice warm despite the late hour. "Just the kids' meal, please," Lisa replied quietly, not wanting to wake Sophie. "The chicken nuggets with apple slices and milk." Betty nodded and wrote down the order, But Michael noticed her glance at the coins on the table and then at Lisa with an expression of gentle concern. "And for you?" Betty asked. "Just water, please," Lisa said, her voice steady despite the obvious lie that she wasn't hungry. Michael felt something twist in his chest as he realized the woman was ordering only for her child while planning to go without food herself. The careful way she had counted her coins suddenly made perfect sense. She had exactly enough for her daughter's meal and nothing more. Betty hesitated for a moment, clearly wanting to offer something more, but understanding that charity might be unwelcome. "I'll get that right out for you," she said finally. As Betty walked away, Michael watched Lisa smooth Sophie's hair with infinite tenderness. The love in that simple gesture was so pure and selfless that it made his own comfortable life feel somehow hollow by comparison. Michael had attended countless business dinners where single meals cost more than most families spent on groceries in a week. Yet here was a mother who had saved coins for days just to buy her child a $4 meal, and she did it with more grace than he had seen in any corporate boardroom. The contrast between his world and hers was stark, but what struck him most was the dignity with which she faced her circumstances. Capítulo 4. The Moment of Decision. Michael continued to observe as Betty brought Sophie's meal to the table. Lisa gently woke her daughter, who rubbed her eyes sleepily before focusing on the food with the kind of excitement that suggested meals like this were special rather than routine. "Mommy, chicken nuggets," Sophie whispered, her voice filled with delight. "Yes, baby. Eat slowly and enjoy every bite," Lisa said, her voice thick with emotion as she watched her daughter's happiness. Michael noticed that Lisa cut the nuggets into smaller pieces and encouraged Sophie to drink her milk, but she didn't touch any of the food herself. When Sophie offered her a nugget, Lisa smiled and said she wasn't hungry, redirecting attention back to Sophie's meal. The interaction revealed the depth of Lisa's sacrifice, not just financial, but the daily choice to go without so her child could have what she needed. Michael had read about such situations in corporate social responsibility reports, but witnessing it firsthand was entirely different. As Sophie ate, Lisa counted out the exact change for the meal, leaving it neatly stacked on the table. Michael noticed she had no money left for a tip, which clearly embarrassed her based on the apologetic look she gave Betty. Michael made a decision that would change both their lives. He signaled to Betty and quietly asked her to bring him the check for the woman and child's table, along with his own. When Betty looked confused, he explained that he wanted to pay for their meal anonymously. "Just tell her someone wanted to help," Michael said, handing Betty a $100 bill. "And please make sure she keeps the change." Betty's face lit up with understanding and approval. "That's very kind of you, sir. I'll handle it discreetly." Michael felt a satisfaction he hadn't experienced in any business deal. The simple pleasure of being able to help someone who clearly needed and deserved assistance. Capítulo 5. The Unexpected Kindness. Betty approached Lisa's table with a warm smile and the check, but instead of taking the coins Lisa had carefully counted out, she said something that made Lisa's eyes widen in shock. "Honey, your meal has been taken care of by another customer," Betty said gently. "He wanted to remain anonymous, but he said to tell you that someone noticed you're a good mother and wanted to help." Lisa stared at Betty in disbelief, then looked around the diner trying to identify who could have done such a thing. Her eyes briefly met Michael's, and she saw him give a small nod before looking away, clearly trying to maintain his anonymity. "I don't understand," Lisa whispered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Why would someone do that for us?" "Because there are still good people in the world, sweetheart," Betty replied, placing a gentle hand on Lisa's shoulder. "And because sometimes we all need a little help." Sophie looked up from her nuggets, sensing something important was happening. "Mommy, why are you crying?" "Happy tears, baby," Lisa managed to say. "Someone very kind helped us tonight." Lisa gathered the coins she had counted so carefully, realizing that she could now save this money for tomorrow's challenges. The relief was overwhelming, not just financial, but emotional. For months, she had felt invisible, struggling alone with no one to notice or care about their situation. The fact that a stranger had not only noticed, but had chosen to help without expecting anything in return, restored something in Lisa that she hadn't realized she had lost: faith in human kindness. Michael watched this interaction from his table, feeling moved by Lisa's genuine gratitude and Sophie's innocent joy. The simple act of paying for a $4 meal had created a moment of hope that seemed to transform both mother and daughter. Capítulo 6. The Approach. After Sophie finished eating and had fallen back asleep against her mother's shoulder, Michael made another decision that surprised even him. He approached Lisa's table, moving slowly so as not to startle her or wake the sleeping child. "Excuse me," he said softly. "I'm the person who paid for your meal. I hope you don't mind that I wanted to meet you properly." Lisa looked up at him with a mixture of gratitude and wariness. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You didn't have to do that, but it means more than you could possibly know." "May I sit for a moment?" Michael asked, gesturing to the seat across from her. Lisa nodded, adjusting Sophie's position to make room. Up close, Michael could see the exhaustion in Lisa's eyes, but also the strength that had kept her going through what were clearly difficult circumstances. "I'm Michael," he said, extending his hand. "Lisa," she replied, shaking his hand gently, "and this is Sophie." "She's beautiful," Michael said, looking at the sleeping child with genuine warmth. "You're clearly a devoted mother." Lisa's eyes filled with tears again. "I'm trying to be. It's just, things have been really hard lately." "Would you mind if I asked what happened?" Michael said. "You don't have to share if you're not comfortable, but sometimes it helps to talk." Lisa studied his face, seeing genuine concern rather than idle curiosity. Something about his manner made her feel safe enough to share her story. "I lost my job 6 months ago," she began quietly. "Sophie got sick and needed expensive treatment, and I've been struggling to find work that I can do while taking care of her. We lost our apartment last month." Michael listened without judgment, recognizing the cascade of circumstances that could quickly overwhelm even the most responsible person. "Where are you staying now?" he asked gently. "A shelter when there's space available," Lisa admitted. "Sometimes we sleep in my car." Capítulo 7. The Offer. Michael felt his heart constrict at the thought of this mother and child sleeping in a car, facing dangers and discomfort that no family should have to endure. His business instincts kicked in, but this time they were focused on solving a human problem rather than a corporate challenge. "Lisa, I'd like to help you," he said carefully. "I run a company that's always looking for talented people, and I have resources that could make a real difference in your situation." Lisa's expression immediately became guarded. She had learned to be suspicious of offers that seemed too good to be true, especially from wealthy strangers who might have ulterior motives. "What kind of help?" she asked cautiously. "First, immediate help. A safe place to stay while we figure out a longer-term solution," Michael said. "I own several properties, including a furnished apartment that's currently empty. You and Sophie could stay there while you get back on your feet." Lisa stared at him, trying to process what he was offering. "I can't accept charity," she said firmly. "I need to be able to take care of my daughter myself." "It wouldn't be charity," Michael replied. "I'd like to offer you a job. My company needs someone to help develop our employee assistance programs, someone who understands what working families actually need." "You want to hire me based on one conversation?" Lisa asked, disbelief evident in her voice. "I want to hire you based on your obvious intelligence, your dedication to your daughter, and your understanding of challenges that my company should be helping employees navigate," Michael clarified. "This conversation has taught me more about real family struggles than all the consultants I've hired." Lisa felt hope beginning to stir, but she forced herself to remain cautious. What would the job actually involve? "Helping design support systems for employees facing crises, reviewing our benefits packages, consulting on family-friendly policies," Michael explained. "Real work that would make a real difference." Capítulo 8. The Leap of Faith. Lisa spent the rest of the night in the diner, talking with Michael while Sophie slept peacefully between them. As their conversation deepened, she began to understand that his offer was genuine and that he seemed to genuinely care about helping families like hers. Michael shared his own childhood experiences with financial instability, explaining how his mother had struggled as a single parent before his father returned from military service. His success had made him forget those early lessons about vulnerability and resilience, but meeting Lisa had reminded him of what really mattered. "Why me?" Lisa asked again. "You could hire professional consultants, people with degrees and experience." "Because you're living the problems I'm trying to solve," Michael replied. "You understand what it's like to choose between rent and groceries, to worry about your child's safety, to maintain dignity while asking for help. That's expertise you can't learn in business school." Lisa felt tears threatening as she realized that someone was finally seeing her struggles as valuable rather than shameful. For months, she had felt like a failure, but Michael was suggesting that her experiences had given her insights that could help others. "What about Sophie?" Lisa asked. "I can't take a job that would mean less time with her or inadequate care while I'm working." "The company has an excellent childcare center," Michael said, "and the position would offer flexibility for family needs. I've learned that supporting employees' family responsibilities actually improves productivity and loyalty." As dawn began to break outside the diner windows, Lisa made a decision that felt both terrifying and hopeful. "I'll try it," she said quietly, "but I need everything in writing, and I need to be able to leave if it doesn't work out." "Of course," Michael agreed. "But Lisa, I think this is going to work out better than either of us expects." Sophie stirred in her sleep, and Lisa smoothed her hair gently, whispering a silent prayer that she was making the right choice for both of them. Capítulo 9. The New Beginning. 3 weeks later, Lisa stood in the furnished apartment Michael had provided, watching Sophie play with new toys while she prepared for her first official day at Kim Technologies. The apartment was modest but comfortable, with everything they needed to begin rebuilding their lives. The transition had been overwhelming but positive. Michael had been true to his word about everything. The job was real, the apartment was safe, and Sophie was thriving in the company's childcare center. For the first time in months, Lisa felt like she could breathe without constant anxiety about their basic survival. Her work had begun immediately, even before her official start date. Michael had introduced her to the HR team and asked her to review their current employee assistance programs. Lisa's recommendations had been extensive and sometimes critical, but they had been received with genuine interest and immediate implementation. She had identified gaps in support for single parents, inadequate mental health resources, and financial assistance programs that were too bureaucratic to be effective during actual crises. Her suggestions were practical and based on real experience rather than theoretical knowledge. Michael had been present for most of these initial meetings, and Lisa had been impressed by his genuine commitment to improving conditions for his employees. He listened carefully to her recommendations and supported her suggestions even when they required significant financial investment. Sophie had adapted to their new circumstances with the resilience of childhood, but Lisa could see the positive changes in her daughter's behavior. Sophie was sleeping better, eating regularly, and showing the kind of carefree happiness that had been missing during their months of instability. As Lisa prepared for her first official day, she felt a mixture of gratitude and determination. Michael had given her an opportunity, but she was committed to proving that his faith in her had been justified. Capítulo 10. Growing Connections. Over the following months, Lisa's role at Kim Technologies expanded beyond her initial job description. Her insights into employee needs had led to the development of comprehensive support programs that were being recognized industry-wide as innovative and effective. Michael found himself working closely with Lisa on these initiatives, and their professional relationship had naturally evolved into something deeper. He was impressed not just by her work performance, but by her integrity, her compassion for others facing difficulties, and her dedication to making real improvements in people's lives. Lisa, meanwhile, had begun to see past Michael's corporate success to the person underneath, someone who genuinely cared about using his resources to help others, who listened to her ideas with respect, and who had shown kindness to her and Sophie without expecting anything in return. Their relationship had developed slowly and naturally, built on mutual respect and shared values rather than the desperation that had characterized their first meeting. Michael had been careful not to pressure Lisa, understanding that she needed to feel secure in her independence before considering any personal relationship. Sophie had become attached to Michael, who had shown genuine interest in her well-being and had taken time to build a relationship with her separate from his connection to Lisa. He attended her school events, helped with homework, and had become a stable male figure in her life. The three of them had begun spending time together outside of work, dinners, weekend outings, and quiet evenings at the apartment that had become their home. These moments felt natural and comfortable, like the family life that Lisa had dreamed of, but never thought she would have. Michael had discovered that success felt different when it was shared with people who mattered to him. His wealth had meaning now because it could provide security and opportunities for Lisa and Sophie, not just accumulate in accounts he rarely thought about. Capítulo 11. The Realization. One evening, as Michael helped Sophie with a school project while Lisa prepared dinner in their apartment kitchen, he realized that this simple domestic scene represented everything he had been missing in his previous life. The expensive restaurants, exclusive clubs, and luxury vacations he had enjoyed alone paled in comparison to these quiet moments of family connection. Lisa, watching Michael patiently explain math concepts to Sophie, felt her heart swell with emotions she had been afraid to acknowledge. Over the months, he had proven himself to be not just a generous employer, but a caring partner and father figure who had earned their love through consistent kindness and reliability. "Mommy," Sophie said during dinner, "is Michael going to be my daddy?" The question hung in the air, representing hopes and fears that none of them had directly addressed. Lisa felt her cheeks flush, while Michael looked at her with an expression that suggested he was very interested in her answer. "What would you think about that?" Lisa asked gently. "I would like it," Sophie said matter-of-factly. "He takes care of us, and he makes you smile." Michael reached across the table and took Lisa's hand. "Sophie's right about the taking care of you part," he said softly. "And I hope I do make you smile, because you've made my life happier than I ever thought possible." Lisa felt tears spring to her eyes. "Michael, I need you to know that I don't want you to feel obligated because you helped us. If this is just about feeling responsible, it's not about obligation," Michael interrupted gently. "It's about love. I love you, Lisa. I love Sophie. I love the life we've built together, and I want to make it official." Lisa looked at this man who had appeared in her darkest moment and had consistently chosen to be a source of light and stability in their lives. "I love you too," she whispered. Capítulo 12. The Proposal. 6 months later, Michael took Lisa and Sophie back to Sunny's Diner, the place where their story had begun. Betty, now a friend who had watched their relationship develop, had helped him arrange a special evening that would honor their beginning while celebrating their future. The diner had been decorated simply but beautifully, with flowers on every table and soft lighting that made the familiar space feel magical. Betty had prepared Sophie's favorite meal and had even made a special cake for the occasion. "Why are we here?" Sophie asked as they settled into the same booth where Lisa had once counted coins for her daughter's meal. "Because this is where we became a family," Michael said, looking at both Lisa and Sophie with love. "This is where I met the two most important people in my life." Lisa felt her heart racing as Michael reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Over the months, she had wondered if this moment would come, but seeing it actually happen felt surreal and wonderful. "Lisa," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion, "you've taught me what it means to love someone not because of what they can give you, but because of who they are. You've shown me that real wealth isn't measured in money, but in the people who matter to us." He opened the box to reveal a beautiful but understated ring, chosen with the same thoughtfulness he brought to everything involving their family. "Will you marry me?" he asked. "Will you let me be Sophie's father officially? And will you build a life with me based on the love we've discovered together?" Lisa looked at the ring, then at Michael's face, seeing in his eyes the same genuine care that had prompted him to help a stranger and her daughter in this very booth. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, to all of it." Sophie clapped her hands with delight as Michael slipped the ring onto Lisa's finger, and Betty appeared with champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for Sophie. Capítulo 13. Full Circle. 2 years later, Lisa stood in the same diner, but this time she was there as Michael's wife and as the Director of Employee Services for Kim Technologies, a role that had evolved from her initial consulting position. Sophie, now 7, was helping Betty arrange flowers on the tables for a special celebration. The diner had become the headquarters for the Kim Family Foundation, a non-profit organization that Lisa and Michael had established to help families facing the kind of crisis they had experienced. Every month, they hosted dinners at Sunny's for families who were struggling, providing not just meals, but connections to resources and support. Lisa's work had expanded beyond Michael's company to influence policy at the city and state level. Her insights into the real needs of working families had led to legislation improving access to childcare, healthcare, and emergency assistance. She had become a recognized advocate for family support services. Michael had discovered that using his wealth and influence to create systemic change was more satisfying than any business achievement. The foundation had helped hundreds of families avoid homelessness, find employment, and access the support they needed during difficult times. Sophie had thrived in their stable, loving home, excelling in school, and developing the kind of confidence that came from knowing she was cherished and secure. She often helped at foundation events, showing the same compassion for others that she had learned from watching her parents. "Do you remember when we first came here?" Sophie asked Lisa as they prepared for the evening's dinner service. "I remember," Lisa said, thinking of that desperate night when she had counted coins while her daughter slept. "I was so scared and didn't know how we were going to make it. But Daddy found us," Sophie said, with the simple faith of a child who had never doubted that love could conquer any obstacle. "Yes," Lisa agreed, watching Michael greet the families who were arriving for dinner. "He found us, and we found him, and together we found a way to help other people find hope too." As the evening began, and the diner filled with families sharing meals and stories, Lisa reflected on how a moment of desperation had led to a lifetime of purpose, love, and the opportunity to ensure that other families would never have to face their darkest moments alone. Dear listeners, we hope this story about resilience, unexpected kindness, and how love can bloom from the most challenging circumstances has touched your hearts. Lisa and Michael's story reminds us that sometimes our greatest struggles can lead to our most meaningful connections, and that true wealth is measured not in what we have, but in what we can give to others. We'd love to know what country you're listening from and what you think about the power of compassion to transform lives. Please share in the comments where you're joining us from today, and let us know if you believe that small acts of kindness can create ripple effects that change the world. Your comments and support motivate us to keep bringing you these stories that celebrate the transformative power of love and human generosity. Until our next story.